Okay, and we're all set to go. You can begin.
Okay. Welcome. Thank you for coming. My name is Nick Blois, the chair of the Carmichael Old Foothill Farms Community Planning and Advisory Council, CPAC. At this time, I'd like the clerk of the board, would you please call the roll and to establish a quorum, and then please read the announcement.
Yes, this is Darrell with the clerk of the board. Member Burnett,
Present.
Member Dax Conroy,
Present.
Member Feliciano, Member McCoy,
Here.
Member Rockenstein,
Present.
Member Rosales, and Chair Blois.
Here.
And you have a quorum. And
Okay,
on
thank
to the announcements. I'm sorry. This meeting is live streamed and temporarily closed to in-person public participation. The clerk's office is in the process of hosting hybrid public meetings that will provide board members and members of the public with the option to participate in the meeting either in person or remotely. Thank you for your patience and support. To make a verbal comment at today's meeting, dial 916-875-2501 to provide your contact information. When the chair opens public comment for a specific agenda item or off-agenda matter, callers will be contacted by phone and transferred into the meeting to make their public comment. Written comments are always accepted. Send your email comment to boardclerk@saccounty.net, and your comment will be routed to the board and filed in the record. And that concludes my announcements.
Okay, thank you, Darrell. This is Chairman Nick Blois. Just some quick procedures and best practices. Please speak from your handset or headset. Please mute devices when not speaking to minimize background noise. Please announce your name when speaking on an agenda item so all listeners will know who has the floor. When the chair calls for a motion in a second, please announce your name prior to making the motion or second, and then the clerk will take a voice vote and confirm the results of the vote after we have made a motion. So at this time, Darrell, would you call the first item?
Darrell, this is Alma. Are you having issues? Okay. Well, I guess I'm taking over while Darrell is having issues with
Oh,
her
I'm so
internet.
sorry. I'm so
That's
sorry.
okay.
I didn't. I apologize. So item number 1 is 3734 Hollister Avenue, RCFE, in the Carmichael Old Foothills Farms community. Request for a conditional use permit and design review.
Hello, good evening, CPAC members. This is Desiree Fox, project manager for item number 1. Confirming you all can hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. Go ahead and proceed with my presentation. I'll be presenting on project number PLMP 2021-0024, and that's for Hollister Avenue Residential Care Home Conditional Use Permit. Next slide. The project site is located at 3734 Hollister Avenue, and it's approximately 155 feet south of Sutter Avenue, and it is within the Carmichael Foothill Farms community. The site is developed with an existing 4,133 square foot home. There's also a pool on the site and an accessory structure located in the rear yard. Next slide. The zoning district for the site is RD2, and this parcel is within the Carmichael Creek Neighborhood Preservation Area. The site is completely surrounded by single-family dwellings that are in the RD2 zone. However, the homes to the west are in the RD5 zoning district. Next slide. The entitlement request for you to review today, and which will be heard by the zoning administrator, is a conditional use permit, and that's to allow for an existing single-family residence that's currently operating as a licensed residential care facility for the elderly to expand from 6 beds to 11 beds, and that's pursuant to Section 351I of the zoning code. The project also includes a design review to determine compliance with the countywide design guidelines. Next slide. Here is the site plan for the project. The project does not necessarily include any modifications to the exterior outside of the parking area that's in the front. So currently the project is proposing 7 parking spaces, one of those being an accessible parking space. The zoning code requires a care home meet the parking standards for a single family dwelling. In addition, the zoning code requires 1.5 parking spaces for every 6 adults. So the applicant currently is proposing 11 beds, so they would be required to have an additional 1.5 parking spaces outside of the 2 they're required. So they are meeting the parking standards for the zoning code, as they are proposing 7 parking spaces in addition to the 2 they're required to have on the site. Next slide. Here is the floor plan for the that details kind of where the beds, how they would be formatted within the site. There are 13 bedrooms, and 11 of those will be operated or occupied by the tenants, and then the 2 other bedrooms will be used by staff. Then there's some common spaces that are existing and will maintain. There's 2 living room spaces in the kitchen and dining room area. Next slide. A few key points to consider. The site is currently licensed with the state of California Department of Social Services, and that's for a 6-bed facility. The applicant is proposing to have 1 to 3 staff members on site at all times, with 2 to 3 being present during the daytime and a minimum of 1 at night, allowing for 24-hour coverage. Currently, the property owner does occupy the home. However, if the zoning administrator were to approve this use permit, the applicant stated that the owner would not occupy the home if there were more than 6 residents. Next slide. There are a number of services that the applicant's proposing to provide with the future residents. They are laid out in the CPAC package, but some of them that are on the screen include food preparation and serving of meals, coordination of services like physical therapy, activities of daily living, including bathing and dressing. There'll also be some assistance with medication, and then also helping with daily and weekly activities like music and dance sessions, etc. And as mentioned, I believe I put that in the CPAC packet if you wanted to look through those again in detail. Next slide. That concludes my presentation. I do want to note, while we review the site plan that's on the screen, that the Department of Transportation has provided a draft set of comments and conditions for the project site if it were to be approved by the zoning administrator, and that includes the installation of Class A street improvements along Hollister Avenue, the dedication of right-of-way, and also dedication for a public utility easement. And those Class A street improvements would include the installation of curb, gutter, and sidewalk prior to the approval of improvement plans. And that concludes my presentation. I'm available to answer any questions that you may have for staff. The applicant for this item is Mark Kong, and they are on the line. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead, the applicant, you can go ahead.
Sir, ladies and gentlemen, thanks for letting me present this today. Just to give a brief synopsis of the project, thanks to Ms. Fox for presenting it. I think you pretty much covered all the bases. I'm going to be the owner, but potentially not the operator of the facility. I'm coming off of active duty service in the Army here pretty shortly. And purchased this from a family that had custom built this home to have 11 bedrooms about 25 years ago. And they operated one side as a care facility, and then the other side was their family side. And so there's already a total of 11 bedrooms. And so when I purchased the property, obviously I don't plan on living there with the family. And so our goal is to serve as many residents as possible by expanding the number of residents we could have from 6 to 11. So that's a general synopsis. We don't plan to change or, expand square footage in any way or make really any exterior modifications to the building besides what may be required by fire department or Department of Transportation, just to make sure we're meeting all the codes. Other than that, I think Ms. Fox pretty much covered everything. I'll stand by for any questions.
Okay. Questions by CPAC members for the applicant?
This is Darrell with the clerk of the board. Would you like me to do like a roll call for each member to see if they have any comments or questions?
No, we don't have to. It's just
Okay.
if they just want to speak up, that would be fine.
Okay, no problem.
Thank you. Okay.
This is
Hearing
Gail.
none. Oh, go ahead, Gail.
Hi, Nick. This is Gail Dax Conroy, and I just had one question. I was under the impression that a group home facility maximum was 6 residents. When or what caused this to move this residential facility to 11? I'm a little bit confused here. I thought there were some rules on group homes, maximum 6 residents in our county.
Yeah, this is Desiree Fox. I can address that.
Thank you.
So the zoning code allows for a care home to exist by right, meaning without it having to go through a public hearing process, up to 6 beds. Section 351I of the code says once it exceeds that, then you have to come in for a entitlement and get a conditional use permit for approval of a certain amount of beds above 6. So any number above 6 will have to go through a conditional use permit. 6 and below is allowed outright, and depending on the type of care facility they're proposing to run, they may have to be licensed by the state of California.
Yeah, this Director Rockenstein. I was going to ask. I mean, that's regardless of the size. Department of Social Services has to approve the use of the facility, right? As far as what it's being used for. Is that correct?
Is that a question for staff?
Yeah, sorry, this is Chris Bahuli, Principal Planner. Just to answer that question, no, there is not a requirement that they be a state licensed facility in order to be or in order to apply for a use permit.
And then my other question is on a conditional use permit, is this for a time period as far as the permit goes, or what general conditions are placed upon the conditional use permit?
So it depends, by each facility. We don't have a hard set of conditions that go on each care home because every care home is unique and they're their own, and the services they're proposing to provide are different. But previous conditions may include having to come in for a review if they're going to change their number of bed, obviously from more than 11, you'll have to come in for review. We don't necessarily, I haven't processed one where we require them to come in if they're going to have less beds than approved, so they'll be able to have up to the amount approved with the use permit. There might be restrictions on the services that they provide, depending on the area they're in, and if there's going to be an issue with, how the site operating as they're proposing in the area they're in. So the conditions of approval for care homes is based off of the site, what the site can handle, and what the zoning administrator finds to be appropriate for the services they're proposing to provide.
Yeah, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I have one more. This is Gail.
Okay.
So
Go ahead, Gail.
this is an elderly care facility. Is this a memory care, or second question, is this a private versus Medicare licensed facility?
Was that a question for the applicant, Gail?
Yes, that is a question for the applicant. And one more is, I'm a little bit concerned that it says 1 to 3 staff during the day when you have 11 elderly people. So that's why I was wondering what kind of an elder care facility is it, and is it private versus Medicare eligible?
Hi, ma'am. Mark Kong here, the applicant. So right now, the facility is private pay, and it is not a Medicare facility. In the future, we don't have any plans of being Medicare and plan to remain private pay. Regarding the number of staff on site, the reason why it says 1 to 3 is because while during the day there will almost always be 3 caregivers, or 2 caregivers and 1 administrator who's also a dual hat caregiver on site, there may be times where 1 caregiver or maybe 2 caregivers are outside the facility, or one's making a grocery run or something like that. And so at all times there will be a minimum of 1, but almost all the time there will be 2 to 3 during the day, ma'am.
Oh, thank you.
Any other questions from the CPAC for the applicant? Okay, hearing none. Darrell, do we have any public comment?
We do not have any public comment for item number 1 at this time.
Okay. All right. All right. At this time, CPAC members, would you like to discuss this item?
And sorry, this is Desiree Fogg, staff. I wanted to just make a clarifying comment as well before you begin your discussion, if that's okay.
Go ahead.
So the applicant currently is proposing to run the facility as a residential care facility for the elderly, which I believe, since they are licensed with the state of California, for this particular one, that they do have to meet certain requirements. But our conditional use permit is not going to be restricted to it being a residential care facility for the elderly. In the event this is going to be operated by someone in the future, the use permit would still stand. And as long as it meets our standards for a residential care home by the zoning code, they would be able to serve different populations. So it could potentially operate, or the tenants could be someone else other than care, or sorry, the operator would be caring for people other than the elderly potentially. And that's where our conditions of approval come in to kind of regulate that, if that needs to be regulated.
Okay, thank you.
And one comment as the applicant, if a condition was placed on it to only allow it to be a residential care facility for the elderly, we would definitely be open to that, as we have no plans to run it as anything other than a care facility for the elderly.
Okay, thank you. Okay, CPAC members, any comments, or do we have a motion?
Yeah, this is Member McCoy. I'll move to approve.
Okay. Do we have a second?
Director Rockenstein, second.
Okay. We have a first and a second. Darrell, would you please call the roll?
Yes. Member Burnett?
Approve.
And Member Dax Conroy?
Approve.
Member McCoy?
Aye.
Member Rockenstein?
Aye.
And Member Blois?
Aye.
And your motion carries with Member Feliciano and Rosales being absent.
Okay, thank you.
Welcome.
Okay,
On
with
to,
that, item 2.
Yeah. Item number 2 is an informational item. It's information relating to Senate Bill number 9, requirements to allow 2 primary dwellings on 1 parcel to provide for ministerial processing of 2 lot tentative partial maps and to address expirations of tentative parcel map approvals.
Okay, good evening, CPAC members. This is Chris Pahuli again, Principal Planner. I'll be providing the staff presentation for this informational item, which provides an overview of the county's approach for implementing a new state law, Senate Bill 9. Next slide, please. In September, Governor Newsom signed SB 9, which has 3 main components. First is that it allows by right development of 2 homes or primary dwellings on a single lot within a single-family residential zone. Second, that property owners can split 1 lot into 2 lots. And third, that tentative maps can be approved for 4 years rather than the 3 years currently. I should note that a property owner can do both splitting a lot and placing 2 homes on those created lots. So currently where you have one lot where you can have one home, with SB 9, you could end up with 4 homes on that one lot after the split. All of these provisions are exempt from CEQA. They have certain requirements that must be met and became effective on January 1, 2022. On December 21st, 2021, the Board of Supervisors introduced county code amendments and updates to the zoning code's user guide to begin processing requests under SB 9. During the hearing, staff committed to attending all of the CPAC meetings and the Planning Commission to discuss these new state laws. I should also mention that for the Carmichael CPAC meeting, we did send out a notification to the various neighborhood associations that may be interested in this new law. And I know that we got the contact information rather late, so I don't know that we will have many that are attending this evening. However, we have indicated to those neighborhood associations that if they want a follow-up presentation or would like us to attend their meetings to explain these new laws and requirements, we would be more than happy to do so. So I just wanted to make sure that you all knew that. Next slide, please. So in order for a property owner to take advantage of these new laws, there is a 2-part locational and zoning test that must be met. The first part of the test is that the properties must be located in a single-family residential zoning district. This requirement does not mean that all zoning districts that allow for single-family development are allowed, but rather that the zoning districts that are primarily for the development of single-family homes. County staff has concluded this provision applies to our RD1 through RD10 zoning districts, as well as potentially properties zoned in a special planning area or neighborhood preservation area that have a single-family residential underlying zone. In addition to being located on properties zoned for single-family residential use, the property must also be located in an urbanized area or urban cluster as identified by the U.S. Census Bureau. The map on this graphic highlights those eligible areas. I should also note that this map is based on the 2010 census data, and we are expecting a revised map late in 2022. However, for now, this is the map that we'll be using to determine areas that are eligible for SB 9 processing. So what does this mean for Carmichael and Old Foothill Farms? Most of that area, or all of the area, is in a urbanized area, and that as long as the property is zoned RD1 through RD10, it would be able to take advantage of the SB 9 provisions. Next slide, please. So in addition to the locational and zoning requirements, there are some other key provisions of the law that I want to make sure to mention. As I stated earlier, the requests for 2 homes or lot splits are to be handled administratively and are not subject to CEQA. Requests can be denied. However, it would only be if the building official finds that public health and safety would be compromised. And so it's going to be a very high bar for a project to actually be denied, and it would likely be that it is on a septic or well, and there's some public safety reason why another home or a lot split could not be approved. There are very limited conditions that the state law allows that could be applied to projects. It's pretty much limited to easements with no off-site improvements or dedications. And then also parking can be required for these projects unless they're located in specific areas in an area close in proximity to high quality transit. Requests can, however, be conditioned to prohibit short-term rentals of the properties, which the county does intend to do. So we will be placing conditions that prohibit a Airbnb or a short-term rental on any of the properties constructed using SB 9. The laws also drastically changed the required development standards that the county has codified in our zoning code. For example, the county could not require side or rear yard setbacks of more than 4 feet, and for parcel splits, the minimum lot size can be as small as 1,200 square feet. I should note that a key provision of the law related to lot splits is that the property owner must sign an affidavit stating they will live in one of the properties for 3 years. So again, that requirement is only for a lot split. If you want to build 2 homes on one lot, you do not need to sign that affidavit. And just as it relates to the minimum lot size of 1,200 square feet, I know that could be a bit concerning. However, the law does require that the lot split does have to be roughly equal in size. And so you wouldn't have a situation where you have a 7,500 square foot lot and one of them is 1,200 square feet. They would have to be roughly equal in size. Next slide, please. I want to walk through how staff is anticipating lot split requests will be handled. I also want to note that this is specific to lot splits. For 2 homes, for the 2 homes on one lot, those requests will go straight through a building permit process with no additional planning, review, or conditioning. Staff has developed a SB 9 application for parcel maps, which is on our website and available now. We also have a frequently asked questions document that is on our website and was just posted, I believe, last week. For applications for these lot splits, we are charging the same fee that is charged for other parcel maps. Projects will be subject to our normal processing and will be reviewed by the Project Review Committee, which is a group of county departments and related agencies to analyze the maps as is done for other ministerial entitlements. Based on the board direction that we received back in December, surrounding property owners and the CPAC members will receive a courtesy notice of filed applications. So I want to make sure to stop here and just make sure that I kind of reiterate that. So what the board wanted is to make sure that you all knew about applications that were filed in your geographic area. And staff is currently working on figuring out the best way to do that, whether it is placed on your agenda as an informational item, just so that you're aware of it, or if it's just an email blast that goes out to CPAC members. The expectation isn't necessarily that a presentation will be made, because again, these are going to be processed administratively, but the intent is to make sure that CPAC members are notified about these applications so that you are aware of what's happening in your community. The decision body for these lot splits is going to be the planning director, which is different than other parcel maps, which are considered by the subdivision review committee. If there is an appeal filed, it would be very limited in scope. We are working with county council right now to understand or to make a determination on who has standing to make an appeal of a SB 9 application, and it appears that it would really be only the applicant perhaps contesting a condition placed on the project or something along those lines. And any appeals would be considered by the Planning Commission, which would be doing business as the Board of Zoning Appeals. Next slide, please. Regarding requests to build 2 homes on one lot, the county is intending to initially use our recently approved accessory dwelling unit development standards, as they generally seem to track with the law. However, I should say that we are waiting for state guidance, which could change this approach. The state law basically states that the maximum size does not state a maximum size for the second home on the property, but it indicates that a jurisdiction has to allow for a minimum size of 800 square feet. Therefore, the county's approach is going to be to use those ADU standards, which, as you likely know, require that a home not be larger than 800 square feet or 1,000 square feet by right, and it could go up to 1,200 square feet with a discretionary special development permit. So again, we may learn with further state guidance that this approach just doesn't align with the state's interpretation of the law. They may indicate to us that there cannot be a limitation on that second unit, but at least at this time, where we are how we are processing them is to use our ADU development standards. And if we find that needs to change, then we will make adjustments to our development standards. Next slide, please. So we are kind of right in the thick of it now. We are working on responding to requests from potential applicants. As I mentioned, we've been directed to meet with all of the CPACs and with the Planning Commission. I want to say you're the sixth or seventh presentation that we've made now to CPACs, and as I also noted, we will likely be meeting with neighborhood associations and other interested parties just to make sure everyone's aware of these new laws and the rules and regulations surrounding them. Also, as I mentioned, we are expecting that at some point soon we should receive some detailed state guidance that may influence how we approach the implementation of these laws, and also might require us to make some changes to our zoning code and our development code. And if that package is necessary, we will kind of slot all of those into a package. The CPACs will be informed about them, and then we will take those on to the Planning Commission and Board of Supervisors. And then lastly, as I noted earlier, you will start receiving notices, so you will be aware of lot splits that are being filed, applications that are being filed in the Carmichael and Old Foothill Farms community, and kind of see how interest is based on these new rules. And that concludes the presentation that I was planning to give, and I'm happy to answer questions that CPAC members may have about these new rules.
Okay. Any questions from CPAC members? Okay, thank you, Chris.
And this is Darrell with the Clerk of the Board. I just want to make mention that there are no public comments at this time for item number 2.
Okay. So does that mean we can move to item number 3?
Yes, so item number 3 is officer elections. And I just want to make note that if the commission chooses, you guys can re-elect the same officers that we from last year. So someone would just have to make a motion in a second to just continue on with the same officers, or you guys can elect new ones.
Okay. Thank you, Darrell.
You're welcome.
I'm willing to stay on. Matt, are you willing to stay on?
Yes.
Okay. So we're willing to stay, make it easy.
With that, this is Member McCoy. I'd like to make a motion that we keep the officers as is. If it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Okay, we got it first. Do we have a second?
Second, Director Rockenstein.
Yep, there you go.
Okay, so Rockenstein will be the second. So I will go on to the roll call vote. Member Burnett,
Approved.
Dax Conroy,
Yes.
McCoy,
Aye.
Rockenstein,
Aye.
and Blois.
Aye.
And your motion carries with members Feliciano and Rosales being absent. So now we would go on to,
CPAC member
sorry
comments?
about that.
Oh, staff
Yes.
update.
No, we have a staff updates. Yes.
Yeah, this is Chris Bahuli again. I don't have any additional staff update this evening.
Okay, thank you, Chris.
And
Hi,
this is
Alma
Jarrell
from
again. I just want to make,
Go ahead.
oh, I was just going to make mention that there were no public comments for item number 3.
And we have to do that for every item. So thank you.
Yes, it's a good thing to just say it for the record.
Yes. Okay.
What were you going to say, Alma?
I'm sorry, this is Alma from the clerk's office. I just wanted to make sure that the CPAC was aware of the public health order that came out probably maybe a week and a half ago. So that'll be until January 31st, and then it'll be reevaluated by February 1st. So I'm thinking we're going to continue meeting remotely for a little bit longer.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Alma.
Okay, and with that, there were no public comments for item number 4. And on to item number 5, that's council member comments.
Any CPAC member comments? Hearing none. Oh, hold on. Go ahead.
Member Burnett, I actually don't have any that I know of. Just checking. Nick, are there any outstanding ones that we needed to have follow-up on as far as status? I don't remember any myself. I think we've already done that from last meeting, but I wanted to check.
Yeah, I'm not aware of any follow-ups. Darrell, did we have anything listed to follow up?
Any like items to ask about, like previous items from previous meetings or
Yes.
members?
Correct. Like, I know
Okay,
we
not-
handled the stuff on Bourbon Drive last time, so we don't have to
Yes.
follow up on that.
Yeah, I don't have anything else notated. That was a follow-up for staff.
Probably the only one I can think of is the Ingle Road housing from, good Lord, what was that, like 6,
Yeah,
7
that
months
that
ago,
would
Nick?
yeah, that actually based on shoot, she's not here tonight. But that, I believe the applicant totally withdrew.
Okay.
That was the multi-family unit.
Yeah, this is Chris Bahuli again, principal planner. It's interesting that you bring up that Ingle Road project. The applicant has indicated to us that they are no longer interested in proceeding with the project. However, we have gotten a couple of inquiries now from a couple of affordable housing developers that might be interested in the site. So I don't think that it's completely dead yet, but we will definitely keep you updated as to any interest in the site if it does seem like it's going to be resuscitated.
Okay. And I can tell you from my background and voice of concerns on that when it was first done, and I'm only saying this because I know Manuel was there and now you're here. It was more that they were all looking at being studio housing, and really maximizing the number of them, as well as when I went to investigate, because that was back when we actually did that. It was very obvious that the current owner was not even taking care of the property for its current use. So I know my vote was hinged on, if they're not even taking care of it now, what are they going to do in the future?
Right.
And it was on the studio end of it, because I can tell you, I'm honestly for affordable housing, but it was so far down the spectrum with what's in the immediate area, it didn't fit, and it leaned itself to being there for some of the folks that, okay, just to cut it short, that it was going to be like a methadone, like walk from your studio to go pick up your meds, and didn't really fit in the neighborhood. Now I can say if it was 1 and 2 bedroom style apartments that were affordable housing and a new applicant was involved, my decision may change.
Yeah, and just maybe as a quick reminder, so the item did go to the Board of Supervisors, and the board provided some real specific direction, kind of along the lines of what you just mentioned about maybe reducing the number of units, a reconfiguration, also some improvements to the facade of the property to make it look more like a residential development than commercial development. So there were some pretty pointed comments made and direction provided from the Board of Supervisors to the applicant. And then at such time, when they went back and worked on it a little bit more, they indicated to us they didn't think they were going to move forward with the project. But again, if someone was going to pick up that application and be consistent
They would have
with
the
that
same
direction,
guidelines.
exactly. And if it was something that was entirely new, then they might have to kind of restart the project. But again, the board is where it's at now, and there was very specific direction, and so we'll see what happens, and we'll definitely keep you updated.
Okay, and then I can say for Nick, I'm not sure if you've driven by there, and part of the reason my question came up is they still had their development sign out, right? So I was kind of like, interesting. Is that there's not an adjoining parking lot, but there's a parking lot that's there. I believe there's one house between or an office space or something, but it's very obvious that way back when that was the medical office for American River Hospital, that this parking lot was probably the parking lot for this office building, or at least an overflow. Someone has gone in and kind of repaved that, regated it, and it looks 300% better. I'm not sure if it's owned by the same people or if it's a different one, but it's been, at least that section has been improved. But I haven't seen any necessarily improvements to the actual property in question.
Okay, thank you. The only other one, Chris, that we would have was there was a question on 7200 Fair Oaks Boulevard. It's currently a office building, and the same type of proposal as 4748 Ingle Road was rumored to be in the works for that. Do you have any update on that?
No, not really. We've had inquiries about it, but nothing filed as of yet.
Okay, so nothing is filed.
There was some inquiries about doing a housing development there, but yeah, nothing really concrete to report yet.
Okay. Any other CPAC members have questions? Okay. Darrell, any public comment on the council CPAC member comments?
No, there is no public comment for item number 5.
Okay, and item number 6 is public comments, right?
Yes, and there is no public comment for item number 6.
Okay. All right, unless anybody has anything else. Okay. Hearing nothing, we can go ahead and adjourn at 7:15.
Thank you very much. You guys have a nice evening.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.